Welcome to this week in the world of wrestling.
Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John, that's my cohort and commentary Ashton, and this is our NXT review. Now, things are going to be done a little bit differently tonight, because tonight this is a recap episode of NXT, recapping the year of 2014. And Ashton, why don't you explain to our viewers how we're going to break this down?
Well, because of the fact that NXT really only had one new match tonight, what we're going to basically do is do a very, very quick kind of skimming over of everything that wasn't new content. We'll talk about some of the interviews and backstage segments, which, I mean, there were quite a few of those, and then we'll get a little bit more in detail in the match itself, talking about that. We're not going to have high spots or low shots or anything like that, because frankly, there was only two people really involved in this show, so it's kind of hard to do high spots and low shots. And frankly, even if I did, my high spot would probably be Corey Graves, because he's already taken Alex Riley's spot on NXT.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm completely right there with you. We're just going to forego all of our usual segments, just get right down to the meat and potatoes of it. So with that said, we're going to forego our heat of the night and just go straight into our formal review. So, Ashton, what do you want to discuss first from this episode?
Well, the first new kind of piece of content that we got from this was a segment where Adrian Neville went home to Newcastle and had a little bit of a reunification with his family, and it was a really neat segment. I really enjoyed it.
I quite enjoyed it as well. I always love hearing the stories of how the performers that we, watch with admiration and love and just feel so electric watching came to be in this business. And just hearing him say that, his parents cut him off from pro wrestling and he had to sneak to his aunt's house to watch, it was just so cool to me. I love stories like that. And to see how far Adrian Neville's come, I think it was a wonderfully done segment.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to go there, but a lot of the time, Adrian Neville does draw comparisons to the Dynamite Kid, and just hearing some of the stories that he was telling about the stuff that he had to do to go out of his way to watch wrestling as a kid, for some reason, that just reminded me of the Dynamite Kid even more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that passion, man. I love when he talked about when he saw it, for the first time and the larger-than-life characters and everything else. Like, that's when he knew, because he was in an area that was dominated where everybody wanted to be a football player, which I guess in that part of the world, that does mean soccer, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's not football, it's football.
Exactly. And, that was kind of the sport, kind of like how, and I don't want to generalize here, but you would almost make the association like Canadians with hockey, and Edge, when he grew up, he thought about being a hockey player, but then he went on to go become a pro wrestler, obviously. Adrian Neville, very similar story. His culture dominated by soccer, chose to be a pro wrestler. His parents thought he was nuts, and here he is now, just one of the biggest attractions of NXT, and one who I can say his main roster debut is imminent. I think you and I are both feeling that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd go as far as to say that I expect him to debut at the Royal Rumble, honestly.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. So to see how far that he's come, and he's, performing with the company, hey, whether you love it or whether you hate it, you can't deny that it is a titan in this industry, and he is, performing amongst, the best in terms of that. So good for Adrian Neville.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so after the Adrian Neville segment, almost immediately we got a Tyler Breeze promo, and he was talking about how just because it's a new year doesn't mean I need to move or something like that. And yeah, he's coming back, but as for now, he's on a little bit of a bye.
Yeah, you know what? I think this is a good thing. You and I have been having discussions quite a bit recently about Tyler Breeze's stock, the influx of talent, him potentially getting lost in the shuffle, the tamperings they've made with his character. I think the idea of him taking a step back and then re-entering the fold when I guess they see fit could actually do wonders for him. I'm actually really happy about this decision. I would like to see Tyler Breeze be NXT champion this year. That's one of my personal fandom goals, if you will, is to see him finally cinch an NXT world title reign. We'll see if that happens.
Yeah, it kind of feels like they're like, okay, we know that Tyler Breeze is a good worker, but is he anywhere near the same level as Zayn, Neville, Itami, or Balor? Probably not. We also know that he has a great character, but we don't want that to get lost in the shuffle because we don't want to overexpose people. And on top of that, the only way to prevent him from getting overexposed to people is quick little squash matches where he gets to do his entrance, do a couple of his signature things, and then get out. And that spot is currently being literally feuded over by Baron Corbin and Bull Dempsey. So right now, as great as Tyler Breeze is, I do think that the best decision is to keep him off TV until some of these guys get called up, or maybe just take a break for a little while.
Completely agree with you. I hope when Tyler Breeze does reemerge that he makes a splash like only he can, and he reclaims that spot because, you know, I mean, it wasn't too long ago that Breeze seemed to be on the cusp of being the NXT World Champion, and now he's here. Hey, it happens. And you know what? We've had discussions about this too. I think it's something that should happen when you are a superstar like a Tyler Breeze or somebody that just seemed hotter in one area. And, you know, it's like a rotation, just like the roster rotation quite literally. You know, now they're just figuring out how to fit all these pieces together. So
yeah, it's almost like NXT has too much talent for 1 hour a week.
Exactly. And I think they know that. So this pullback, I think, is really quite smart. So
yeah, I mean, even before this year, we had Neville and Breeze and Kid and Zayn and, you know, the Lucha Dragons and the Vaudeville. And when I say even before this year, I mean before the debuts that happened this year, and the Vaudevillains and the, you know, we had the Ascension and all these really amazing talents. And now take all those guys, but then also add in Baron Corbin, Bull Dempsey, you know, Hideo Itami, Finn Balor, Kevin Owens. It's getting really, really crowded at the top. And honestly, as much as my gut instinct wants me to say they should get another half hour to an hour added to NXT each week, I feel like that's a really great formula to make the show less special, so I won't.
I wouldn't either, and not just for the reasons you mentioned, but I think it forces them to be creative. It forces them to learn how to allocate their resources appropriately.
Well, I mean, let's be real with ourselves, John. There's no such thing as forcing a writer to be creative. The WWE's main roster writers have proven that for the last 4 months.
Very true, but I stand by my other point that I think it does kind of make them know how to allocate their resources to maximize the best possible hour of television, you know, per week, or should I say, you know, it is a network exclusive show. So, you know, I like that. This roster rotation, I think, is just as much to the writers' benefit because it keeps them fresh, it keeps the juices flowing, as it is to the actual wrestlers. So, yeah, I wouldn't give them any more time. They've done spectacular with 1 hour. In fact, you know, with hindsight, you know, I used to be an old school TNA fan. I think one of the biggest mistakes they made was going to 2 hours. You know, everybody was so excited, but you know, that's starts to wear after a while. So hopefully NXT doesn't suffer the same pitfall, at least not anytime soon.
Absolutely. And to me, even if they would want to add time, it would make significantly more sense to add a half hour than a full hour. An hour and a half, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen an hour and a half long wrestling show before, but if you go to an hour and a half, that lets you either A, add another segment or two, or B, have a couple of longer matches on your show, and that could help NXT out immensely.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, if you look at, like, Lucha Underground has an hour, but if you really think about it, even though they have the 20 guys that participated in the 2 big matches last week, only about 8 to 10 of them really have any kind of significant thing going on. Like, no one really cares about what Superfly or Loco or Mariachi Loco or any of those guys have going on. It really kind of comes down to like 8 to 12 people. And NXT, if you count some of the heels and some of the not really established but still appreciated by the fans kind of people and the tag teams like Team Thick and that kind of stuff, they have a lot. I would say they have closer to 20 people that a lot of people care about.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you there. So it'll be interesting to see where the future of the television product, you know, as a whole, goes from here.
Yeah. So after the Breeze promo, we went into a Zayn Neville Our Evolution replay. They showed probably 70% of the match, maybe 60% in its entirety, and they showed all the way up to the Owens turn. So that happened, and then we got our first backstage segment of the night, which was Curtis Axel confronting the NXT general manager, William Regal, about wanting to be on NXT. And who can blame him?
Yeah, I've seen several people on Tweetov discuss Curtis Axel, getting what they call a promotion to NXT, and I can't help but agree. And I'm excited for him. I feel like NXT is the place where if you don't have everything together, you go there and you figure yourself out. Maybe Curtis Axel will emerge with a gimmick that you and I fall in love with. Maybe it'll be something that we loathe. Regardless, I'm happy to have him here. I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, that being said, I don't know if you're aware or not, but apparently Axel is going to be using his real man's man gimmick on NXT if and when they let him do it.
That's fine. Let's hope that they flesh it out and give some depth to it, so I learn more about it. And
it's
we get to
basically Rybaxel without the Ryback.
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe he can pull it off, because it sounds bad on paper, but NXT's been known.
See, it doesn't sound bad to me. It sounds amazing to me. Like, I loved the Rybaxel segments where they would be doing an interview with Tom Phillips, and then Axel would just randomly be like, "Who are you talking to, you warm beer drinking coward?" It's just like, what? What are you even talking about? But apparently he knows what he's talking about, and I'm genuinely curious to see that character get fleshed out.
Definitely, completely agree.
Up next, we had a promo from Hideo Itami and Finn Balor together. It was actually really good. Itami basically said, the Ascension tried to ruin my debut, so we're going to ruin them. And I don't really recall what Balor said, John. You want to give me a little bit of a refresh?
I can't recall verbatim what he said either, but pretty much, they tried to humiliate us on the way in, so we were going to destroy them on their way out. It was pretty much what he was driving at.
Yeah, that sounds about right. To me, even though and apparently actions speak louder than words, and I made a mistake by not being able to remember what he said, but I do think that Finn Balor is better on the mic than I expected him to be.
Yeah, you know what? I'm really still waiting for him, and I know he's not going to have it immediately. It's not his fault or anybody's fault. I'm just still waiting for him to have that more extended promo, just to really see the depth. Kind of like Adrian Neville gave, I think, the first night he was NXT champion. And we said, wow, I think he can really cut a promo if he just keeps it basic, and he has to go for a certain amount of time. I think Finn may fall into that same category. Only time will tell, but I still see huge dollar signs all over Finn Balor. He is amazing.
Yeah, and after those guys got to talk, we got a look back at our NXT debuts from the year between Baron Corbin, Bull Dempsey, Itami and Balor, of course, and most recently Kevin Owens. We've had some very impactful debuts this year, the least of which obviously being Bull Dempsey. But at the end of the day, when you get Baron Corbin, a legit, like, borderline giant monster killer, Hideo Itami, Finn Balor, and Kevin Owens all in the same year, that is one hell of an introductory class.
Absolutely. And I hate to keep ragging on Bull Dempsey here, but you see that lineup, and I just kind of hum the song to myself, one of these things is not like the other, because it's just like, wow, it is stacked. But you know what, though, like, that's another thing about NXT. Even Bull, I can't be that hard on because he's in this program with Corbin, and I'm genuinely interested.
And you know what the hilarious thing is? Freaking Bull Dempsey debuts earlier in the year. I think he debuted in the spring, sometime in like April or somewhere around there. And now we got Kevin Owens, and it's like Kevin Owens is everything that Bull Dempsey thinks he is.
Right. Just
plus some.
Yeah, plus some, I'll say. I mean, just an absolute destroyer. I think the way that Kevin Owens' momentum has panned out and, his direction, I think that's kind of what they wanted to pull out of Dempsey, but just unsuccessfully. And, Bull, I think, is that good monster hand, hey, go in, squash this guy, for all intents and purposes, let's say Gabriel, and just, kill time. But, I just see Bull Dempsey as nothing more than filler, whereas I see the remainder of that introductory class as genuine attractions.
Yeah.
So.
Especially, if we're talking attractions, especially Corbin for his just legit, like, I don't want to step into a dark alley with that guy, and Balor for his entrances.
Yeah, Balor has got the theatrics and the presence down. I mean, we've talked Corbin to death. I think he has the look, kind of like we always used to say, and still probably would say about a
I
Colin
think he
Cassidy.
needs to add a little bit more facial hair because he does have a very young-looking face.
We're still talking Corbin, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah,
I
definitely
mean,
agree.
he has the mutton chops, but he really needs to add a mustache or some kind of like a full beard or something like that.
Yeah, I think he just needs to get the beard full. I think he would look too weird with the mustache for me personally, but if he gets that beard a little bit more filled out, I don't see why that wouldn't work. So,
Okay,
yeah.
Baron Corbin, we're going to use you as a template to build the perfect wrestler. Bull Dempsey, come here. Okay, now, Bull, stand still. We're literally going to remove your facial hair and put it on Corbin. And that's it. That's it. That's literally it. That's all we need from you, Dempsey. You can go away now. Corbin, you're done.
Sweet.
Dempsey has it. Like, he has the goatee with the beard, and that's exactly what Corbin should be rocking, I think.
Well, you know, he's never given it up now. He's like, I found the only thing that keeps me relevant. I'll take you all alive.
Which, again, makes him even more irrelevant because it's something that Kevin Owens also has. But Kevin Owens is leaps and bounds better in every other category ever. Speaking of Kevin Owens, up next we had a Kevin Owens promo.
I knew it. You never fail to miss a good transition.
I heard you even starting to go into it a little bit there, bro.
Yeah, I wanted to make, and I knew you had calculated it perfectly, but I wanted to be a preemptive and make sure, and sure enough, you come through again. I'm telling you, you need a t-shirt for how you segue into things, man. And speaking of t-shirts, that was actually the closing line for Kevin Owens' promo. I love how smug he was throughout this whole thing.
Smug, and I would go as far as to say jaded.
Yeah, it's like he came in, and I honestly, I can't even really remember many of the lines in his promo actually, but just to really capture the theme, it seemed like he was coming in, you guys expect me to feed you these bunch of typical lines, so here's a tagline for you. I will fight anyone and everyone. I think he said until I'm the only one left standing.
Yep.
And I think he said, you should put that on a t-shirt. And he walked off. It was so good. Oh, man, he is just so refreshing with how he approaches things. I am so happy that Kevin Owens is with us and not with anybody else. It feels so good.
Well, I mean, to say he's with us and not with anyone else implies that he wasn't amazing before he got here. So.
Oh, he was incredible before he got here, but that's what I'm saying. Like, the fact that we get to capture that talent, that greatness, and it's not being squandered in, like, Destination America TNA, you know? So, great stuff.
Right, absolutely. All right. Up next, we had a look back on NXT superstars who debuted on Raw throughout the year. We had a few more of these than we had NXT debuts, but it was still pretty great. And all I could think while we were watching this was, oh, here's a list of all the people who threw their careers away. Paige, Bo Dallas, Emma, Summer Rae, Adam Rose, and Rusev. And the only one on that list who's still even relevant is Rusev.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, when they were playing this, I couldn't help but feel a bit jaded myself. I'm like, all of these great NXT performers, and they're not even making the splash that I originally envisioned for them, save for Rusev, who, to me, has honestly become one of my favorite superstars this year. Just a fantastic talent, but everybody else, and even Adam Rose, I'll cut a little bit of slack, because after his recent assault on the Bunny, who knows what kind of metamorphosis may be awaiting him. But, I mean, even him for the time being, I'd have to classify as a flop. Paige, certainly. Emma, without question.
Yeah.
It's just really disheartening. Bo's out with an injury. I don't even know what's going to be waiting for him when he comes back. So it's hard times. Hard times.
Yeah, man, it's been a rough year for NXT alumni.
And, you know, you and I have been watching this product together for, you know, it feels like forever, right? So I feel this
Well,
sense
I mean, we have been watching it since, well, literally since the day it started at Full Sail. So that was, I believe that happened in like the spring or summer of 2012, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we've been watching it, and even going back further than that, we watched some of the older NXT stuff when it was still a competition, and I've been watching FCW since like 2010. So
Yeah, that's why, I mean, with all those debuting talents and stuff, I've always kind of referred to you as almost like a scholar almost with your history and, how much you've watched. And, the point I wanted to make when I talked about our history of watching this program together, I've developed a sense of, like, protectiveness and fondness over these guys because we do compare it to a school and then and our graduates and everything else, and you want to see them go on and succeed. And it is kind of disheartening to see where most of these talents have ended up, but
I think to me the
yeah.
most disheartening of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, I could say Adam Rose, but they neutered him before he even got to the main roster by taking away his music and some of the cool stuff he had on his entrance. Biggest disappointment for me, just comparing where they were at first to where they are now, it's got to be Paige.
Definitely.
Like, she went from top of the world, best diva on the planet, and no one was even really questioning it. She was hands down the best thing going on NXT for a while, and then she debuts on the main roster, and she was the best thing going on there for a while. And then she had her feud with AJ, and then AJ ended up getting into a feud with Nikki Bella, and Paige just dropped off the face of the earth. And now she's been relegated to 6-person tag matches on Raw. What?
And she's the newest cast member. I don't even say this really in a bad way, but she is the newest cast member of Total Divas.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the idea that they're using that as kind of like the shock paddles to revive interest, when if you just let her go out there and be her, that would be sufficient, just makes me think.
See, the problem, John, is that they're not using this to revive interest in her. They're using her to revive interest in Total Divas.
Yeah. Really, really tragic. I mean,
it's gonna work. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that this coming season, or I should say the second half of this season of Total Divas, is going to do better viewership than the first half did, just based on the fact that they're doing better marketing, and Paige has a fan base of her own that she's going to bring to the show, and I mean, that fan base includes, but isn't limited to, a bunch of really creepy guys that obsess over her and buy her signed merch for tens of thousands of dollars online.
Yeah,
it's a thing.
Exactly.
I don't know if you've seen it before, but it's a thing.
And the really kind of twisted irony of this whole thing is that the one person who NXT really did seem to benefit outside of Rusev was a guy that wasn't even new, and that would be Tyson Kidd. Because at least thanks to NXT, we see him more on the main roster, whether it's being, a manager to Natalia in her matches, which of course he makes it all about him anyway. The tag team with Cesaro. Even before that, he seemed like he was on kind of a winning streak. Hell, he even beat Sheamus by countout when Sheamus was U.S. champion.
Yep.
So yeah, really, that's kind of the worst part. Like, you have this fresh crop of talent, and I love Tyson. It's nothing against him at all. But you have this fresh crop of talents that, again, save for Rusev, all seem to flop. And the one guy who really just even said in promos, looked at NXT as a launching pad back into relevance because he wasn't where he wanted to be. And it worked out for him, more or less.
Yeah, so the 6 people that went from NXT to Raw, one of them is successful. The one guy that went from Raw back to NXT is successful. So NXT has a 100% success rate.
There you go.
NXT's success rate is 100. Raw's success rate is like 13.3 something.
Crazy, man.
Or no, not 13. It would be 16. 16 and 2/3%. So there you go. But yeah, up next we had a Bayley promo, and the cringe was real with this for me.
I hate being like this because I know people are going to be like, John, you're such a jerk, but I just don't care about Bayley anymore. I don't. Like, it really clicked for me watching this promo tonight. Like, it wasn't horrendous to me or anything like that. I don't want to make it seem like, it was so bad, because it wasn't. It's just, I'm sitting there and I'm like, wow, only a few months ago, I was really invested in her rise and in her story, and now all I can think about is, can we get to Sasha Banks, please? It's just so weird how much I've grown to just not care about Bayley anymore. Like, she was talking about watching Triple H's DVD, Thy Kingdom Come, and Rich Brennan just happened to walk in right when the chapter of Triple H, blowing his knee out, I think tearing his other quad, occurred. It was DX versus Radar KO, I think New Year's Revolution 2000, and I want to say 7. And she's watching that whole rehabilitation. She's saying she's going to be just like that. She's going to come back better than ever. And you can tell Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks that. And I'm like, what does it even matter? You know, Becky Lynch made you tap out only a week prior. Sasha's humiliated you at every turn. And I know a good comeback story and everything, but the thing is, I don't think Bayley has the personality, at least for me, to make that resonate like Sami Zayn did with his. Like, Sami, I was with him every step of the way, every beat. I felt every loss, every setback. With Bayley, and this is where I look like a dick, she just looks pathetic to me.
Yep.
And I can't get behind it. So I'm sorry, guys. Really, I don't mean to be a jerk. Everybody knows I love to have fun on here and laugh with Ash and all that stuff. But I'm being 100% sincere when I say I just don't care about Bayley. It's sad, but it's true.
Yeah. And I think it really comes down to I said in our last NXT review, she's just not that good of an actor. Like, the idea that she can portray emotion in the ring is a separate thing from being able to do it outside of the ring. When you're in the ring and you're caught up in the moment, you are basically your character. Like, there is no getting into character. You become your character when you're in that ring. And she does a great job of selling her emotional distress in the ring. But when you get outside of the ring and she still all smiles and giggles and she's talking about how I'm going to come back and be better than ever, it's like something that you would expect to see on My Little Pony Friendship is Magic.
It just comes off as fake to me in a way. You know, like, even with Sami Zayn, and you can say that Sami Zayn, I think it would be accurate by all accounts, was an optimist a lot of the time. Hell, you and I even joked, like, his gimmick was he is a nice guy. But here's the thing about nice people. Like any other human being, they have their rope. And how much other people or their environment uses up of it, you know, is going to determine how they react to certain situations. And after Sami Zayn got screwed over by Adrian Neville and lost yet another NXT championship opportunity, you know, he's like, screw this. I always go down this path. This always happens to me. Not this time. And here you have two girls bullying Bayley, making her look like a joke, and she's still, in that sing-songy voice with that smile, I'm going to come back better than ever and just continue to be that inspiration. No, get mad. I'm not asking you to turn on anybody or go crazy or this and that. Just
see, but that's the
where you
thing,
are.
though, John. And again, we went through this last week, too. You're basically asking her to do exactly what Sami Zayn did, and she can't.
I just don't think she has the emotional depth to pull it off.
No, I'm not saying she can't because I think she's incapable of it. I'm saying she can't because she literally shouldn't, because it would make it look like it's old news. Sami Zayn already did it. Why would you want to do something when someone else already did it and they did it as good as anyone's ever going to be able to do it? She's not going to be able to do it better than Zayn, which doesn't say much because I don't know of anybody that would be able to do it better than Zayn did it. So why should she try?
I just don't know what we do with this because it seems to be just stuck in one gear. And I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe there are other people that are really
it doesn't make me
her, you know?
it doesn't make me love Sami Zayn any less, but at the end of the day, he did kind of take that moment from Bayley.
Yeah, you know. And I really can't say that I blame him, and I know you can't either. You know, it happens. But the thing is, you know, we say he took the moment from Bayley. I think especially in a context like NXT, you only get things taken away from you if you allow them to a certain degree to be taken from you. You know, to me, I just feel like Bayley really hasn't evolved or really come into her own in any way. Like, to me, her performance in NXT TakeOver, and then see, this is the difference you were talking about earlier. NXT TakeOver Fatal 4-Way, her match with Charlotte, like the body language of her and her facial expressions in the context of that match, I thought were wonderful. I was like, wow, you know, Bayley's really fighting this, that, and the other. That's the acting in the ring where you become the character. As soon as she steps out of those ropes and we expect, you know, Bayley, you know, to be Bayley outside, it just becomes so boring and trivial. I feel like Becky Lynch is even close to surpassing her if she hasn't already. You know, and that's scary because if you just look at where Bayley was a few months ago, you know, it's nuts. I was thinking she was going to be the one to end Charlotte's reign. Now I don't even know who's going to end it at this point. So
I don't know. I still wish it would be Sasha, but I mean, let's kind of pull off another smooth transition here and talk about the Sasha versus Charlotte match, which opened with Ric Flair introducing Charlotte, and he might have oversold her a bit, but at least he gave some credit to Sasha Banks.
yeah, He said, you were awesome at our evolution, and I love Sasha because the camera pans over to her and she's like, I know it, and she's like really like in the zone, like I'm gonna kill somebody. So yeah, Charlotte gets her introduction, and you had told me, Ashton, before we watched this episode that you had read, I believe, on Reddit and other places, that people were saying it was a good match, but not as good as our Evolution. I think you and I anticipated that, considering the type of show we're getting tonight. And I have to say, for a TV match that closed this whole thing out, like Regal and Cesaro did last year, I thought this was a great matchup. Again, our Evolution, I think, is going to be in its own class, but for more reasons than just, oh my god, it was an amazing match. I feel like, given everything, given all the circumstances these two had to deal with tonight, they did very well.
This was an exceptional match. This could have main evented just about, and I need to specify just about because there were some shows with some out of this world main events, but this match could have main evented just about any NXT of the year this year.
Yeah, definitely. And
I would say there are single digit number of exceptions to ones that they wouldn't have been able to main event where they had a match that was better than this.
And you know what? I feel like, in its own way, at least in my opinion, the fact that this was the main event for this particular show is a huge compliment, because this is a recap show. This is the only match that a lot of people just watching on the WWE Network are going to see. So to put that burden on Sasha Banks and Charlotte to try and carry it and say, okay, you guys are the only match they're going to see, so you better make it good with what you're given, and they go out and they do it, I think is a huge testament to how great these two women are. Because again, that spot last year went to Cesaro Regal, which you and I absolutely loved. And this year, I feel like it's no different. I really enjoyed the performance from these two.
Yeah, they were phenomenal tonight. Sasha just killed it. Charlotte used her flexibility to about as much of an advantage as I've ever seen her use it, honestly. I've seen her use the flexibility in matches before, but I don't think that it ever benefited her more than it did tonight.
We got to see her flexibility both defensively and offensively.
Yep.
Defensively, when she was caught in the bank statement, she was able to stretch her leg and get it either on the middle or even the top rope.
No, it wasn't her leg, dude. She reached for it.
Oh, it was her arm. Yeah, that's right, her arm. And she got that. And then offensively, I guess this is the spin the commentators would put on it. She put like a heck of a lot of torque on the figure four, getting the tap out from Sasha Banks. What did you think about that, by the way? Because haven't we had criticisms of that in the past?
We've talked about it before, and honestly, dude, Charlotte doing what she did doesn't make the move any more effective, but the way Sasha sold it made it look like it was so much more painful when she did it that way.
Yeah. And you know what? I feel like, I don't know how many people would consider the nuances of the maneuver like you and I have when we originally discussed it, because visually it does look excruciating. I will give Charlotte that much. Like, to me, I look at it and it's like, oh my god, she's just bending all the way, she's applying all this pressure. I think it all comes back down to, again, as you were saying with Sasha, who's ever selling the maneuver, and Sasha's just brilliant. So, yeah, I'm
Dude,
okay.
She freaked out.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she did. You almost would have thought that she tapped out as a sense of urgency before her legs just snapped, and she got seriously injured. I loved how this whole thing was handled. Yeah, just another great bout. The downside, and I think you were kind of alluding to this earlier, you'd have to think after a second straight championship loss, Sasha goes to the back of the line. But here's the thing, now I'm kind of hoping that Becky Lynch steps up and maybe she gets a turn now. I mean, she did just submit Bayley recently. Maybe it'll be a battle of the submission holds now. Charlotte's torqued figure four versus Becky Lynch's, I don't even know what we call her submission maneuver. Hopefully they give a name to it soon.
What would you call Sasha's finisher?
Well, she calls it the bank statement.
Well, yeah, but then how is Charlotte versus Becky any more of a battle of submissions than this was?
I mean, yeah, I suppose you're right. I mean, we did see both holds in this matchup, but I'm just saying, now that Becky, too, has a submission, I guess maybe they could play on that. And plus, they are both leg-based, whereas with Sasha, it seemed more back-based, neck-based.
Right.
But regardless...
I think that they might benefit in the future from doing the double switch with Sasha and Charlotte, turning Sasha face, Charlotte heel,
Right.
and then using the momentum from that for Sasha to win the title off of Charlotte.
That could potentially be, and that's another
Like
interesting
I could see Becky versus Charlotte being the next pay-per-view, the next live special, and maybe Charlotte absolutely just destroys Becky. And I don't mean squash match. I mean after the match is over, she loses her temper and destroys Becky, and Becky doesn't necessarily need to turn face with Sasha, but Sasha comes out to help Becky, and we have a little bit of a kind of a conundrum going on where it's like Charlotte's being the jerk here and Sasha's just coming out to help her friend as a face. I think that they could do something like that to set up for kind of when it starts to really feel like, okay, it's Charlotte's time, she needs to get called up now. They could have Sasha hot as a babyface to win the title off of her.
Absolutely. I like that idea. Hell, I mean, for Charlotte versus Becky Lynch, in the moment, if that's a story they're going with, they can go with the fact that when Becky Lynch was focused on pandering to the crowd and being a babyface, Charlotte beat her 3 straight times, but now that she's listening to Sasha and she's got more heelish tendencies, she's starting to gain the upper hand on Charlotte a little bit. So if they wanted to play with that dynamic, I think that would be pretty cool to do.
And dude, here's the thing. Anytime we saw Charlotte versus Becky Lynch, it always seemed like Becky gave her a harder time than anyone.
Yeah. Each time she seemed to get a little bit closer, to putting Charlotte down. And here's the other thing, too. We're talking about the double turn. Another interesting thing about this match is I think they were more conscientious of the dynamics because Sasha definitely seemed to heal it up a lot more than she did at Our Evolution, which I really like. Definitely far more.
I just want Sasha to cut a promo talking about how Charlotte has been handed everything her entire life and Sasha had to work to get where she is.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for that promo as well. Admittedly, it's probably not going to come now, seeing as how this seemed to be the concluding note for the time being between these two. Maybe I'll be wrong, though. Only time will tell. But just to be that invested in this saga, to be that invested in the women's division as a whole, on NXT, and people are still raving about their matchup from Our Evolution, it's just a really great feeling when you're, viewing a company that traditionally doesn't really put women on this kind of a pedestal.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful.
It was awesome. The show, I won't necessarily say the show was awesome, but that match itself was absolutely amazing. One of the best TV matches of the year, specifically for NXT, and I would even go as far as to say the best TV match of the year, or best Divas TV match of the year, even including the main roster.
Yeah, I would completely agree with you there.
And honestly, I don't even think that's that much of a stretch. It was that good.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
I don't really have that much else to say. If you have anything to add, go ahead. But otherwise, we don't have anything else left to do, so you can just go ahead and take this baby home.
All right, guys. This has been NXT. This has been TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John. That's my cohort and commentary, Ashton. Guys, be sure to comment and subscribe on YouTube. What were your favorite moments of NXT for 2014? Be sure to discuss the same thing on TWitWoW, and we will see you again for our Monday Night Raw review as all of your favorite superstars continue to vie for dominance as we head towards the Royal Rumble.
And
see
we
you
hope
there, guys.
that we don't facepalm too much.
Absolutely. Peace.